Spherical Value in Color by Becky Schmidt. Obtain a set of Prismacolored colored pencils from the instructor. The colors should be set up from lightest to darkest. You will be given 3 jelly beans to draw. Depending on their color, you will need to pick the correct colors from the colored pencil set. In this example, the artist will choose red, orange, and yellow, or the warm colors. The artist will also select indigo blue and Tuscan red for the shadows. To start, the artist will use a number 2 pencil to block in or very lightly draw the jelly beans and the shadow shapes. It will take a few minutes to draw the jelly beans and the shadows. If you make a mistake, just erase and continue. Remember that if you draw too hard, the pencil will show through the colored pencil at the end of the drawing. When you start drawing with the colored pencils, it's recommended that you start with the lightest color first and block in the lightest value of each of the jelly beans with that color. You will need to carefully observe where the lightest values in each jelly bean are so that you can use the lightest color to recreate that value. In order to show the red jelly bean in front of the orange jelly bean, you will have to use yellow at the top of the red jelly bean and red at the very bottom of the orange jelly bean. Notice that the artist is blending in an elliptical pattern and that the artist used the yellow to create several values before starting with the orange. In order to create a unified drawing, we will add each of the colors to each of the beans. The yellow should obviously have less orange and red than the other 2 beans. Notice how the artist is adding value to each of the beans rather than trying to finish one object at a time. This is how all artwork should be created. You go back and forth between different objects in the drawing to make sure that the entire drawing is unified in value and color. Notice how the artist has left the lighter color towards the top of each bean. This is because of the way the light is hitting each bean in the classroom with the lights and the light source that we will be using. The artist stays away from the top right of the red jelly bean so that yellow stays on that area in order for the red jelly bean to show in front of the orange jelly bean. Hopefully you noticed how lightly the artist originally started drawing with the colored pencils. As the drawing progresses, you notice that the artist presses a little bit harder with the colored pencil in order to make the original color of the jelly bean show up. For example, here you can see the artist doing this to the yellow jelly bean. It is again important to note that yellow will be used on the top right of this jelly bean example so that the orange jelly bean will look like it's behind as the artist adds red to the bottom of the orange jelly bean. It is also important to note the angle at which the artist is using the colored pencils. It is a very shallow angle when applied to the paper. The artist is also sometimes using an eraser to undo things that were done as a mistake. As the artist attempts to add the shadows, Tuscan red and indigo blue are used as they are the darkest colors in the kit. You will not be allowed to use black to create the shadows as it flattens out value. Just like the box and cylinder drawings that were done in ebony pencil, the artist is creating an umbra and penumbra for the shadows. Remember, the umbra is the darkest shadow and the penumbra is the next lightest shadow that you see. Having very sharp pencils when you are doing the edges between the shadows and the jelly beans and the edges between the beans themselves is very important so that you get very crisp edges. Doing this will help make the drawing look more focused rather than blurry. If you make a mistake with the colored pencil, you can of course use the eraser. However, sometimes it's advisable to use an X-Acto knife at a very shallow angle to scrape off the colored pencil. When you do this, it's important to go extremely lightly or you will rip the paper. Once the integrity of the paper is lost, you can never get it back. It is again important to note that the artist moves back and forth between adding value to the beans and the shadows. Each value is added very lightly at first, and then the artist moves back and adds darker value to create a stronger contrast, which creates a stronger drawing. The artist doesn't freak out and doesn't start over when mistakes are made. She just uses an eraser or perhaps an X-Acto knife to scrape away layers of the pencil that were in the wrong place. While this drawing will be about 6.5 minutes, the actual drawing takes approximately 2 to 3 class periods to create. This video was sped up about 20 times the speed in order to show this process to you in a more efficient manner. By the end of the drawing, the jelly beans look like they are formed or spherical because the artist applied value in a meandering path like a river or the edge of a lake. One has to consistently look at objects in order to obtain the correct values within them so that they look more real. Value, color, and contrast are just a few of the elements and principles that can be used to achieve this.